So one of the questions about the proposed temple in Cody is where it will be visible from. And this is kind of difficult to imagine sometimes when you're talking about heights and setbacks and things. And so I wanted to try and really look at where we can see the temple from. So this is a 3D model of the temple. I'm going to actually change it to a different color so that it's easier to see. There's a 3D model of the temple that we created and put it into Google Earth. It's the only 3D thing on the map in this view. None of the trees or houses or commercial buildings are 3D, even though they have shadows that sometimes make it seem that way. So it stands out pretty good, which is great because we want to be able to see where we can see the temple from. So this is Cody, backing up. We're looking south. Here is downtown. Through here, there's the high school if you need a landmark. Here is the old Walmart building if you need a landmark there. I'm sorry, that's the new Walmart building. This is the old one. And this is a cemetery. So that gives you an idea of where we're at. Now, one of the questions has been, will it be visible as you come in to Cody from Yellowstone? So a lot of our visitors come in along this road over here, and we're wondering if it is visible from over there. So what we can do to try and determine that is go into Street View. We can drop our little guy down here. It's going to fly us in and give us a actual photograph view. This is photographs all stitched together of what the Google cars saw as they drove through looking at all this. Now 3D models don't show up in the Google Street View, but we can change it to Terrain View and take out all of the Street View photos, and it just shows us the satellite imagery overlaid on the elevation changes. Now we want to be able to make sure that we're looking at the temple, so one thing that we can do is we can flatten the whole world out. This takes out all elevation changes and we can see there's the temple. It's higher than that. When we put the train back, when we turn the train back on, it'll go back up to the correct elevation. This is just completely flattened out, but it shows us where we need to be looking, and it shows us about the size of the temple from here. So that's what we're looking at. What we want to do now is turn back on the terrain and see if we can see the temple. And you'll notice that right away the temple disappears because of the terrain. There's actually, I doubt you can see it in the recording, but there's the tiniest tip of it maybe sticking up there. I can't even tell from looking right at my screen. But it's definitely not visible. If we turn back on the street view, we'd also see that this hillside actually has trees, buildings, other view obstructions. So it looks like the temple is not going to be visible from the entrance to Cody from Yellowstone. So also what we can do is we can just drive along. And this is pretty handy. This just drives us right along the terrain. And as you can see, as we come around the corner here, the terrain gets even more in the way of the view of the temple. So there's where the temple should be, right about here. We turn back on the terrain, and it disappears behind the hill. Now what about when we get past that hill? Can we see it? So let's go right in here, and here we'll turn on Street View so we can show where we're at. We're near the old Wild Horse Cafe. There's trees up along here, buildings up along here, but we'll go back to just the terrain view. We'll make sure we can still see we're still looking at the temple. We are. The temple's right there, but the hill blocks it off. So, and again, trees and houses block it off even more. So let's keep driving though. We want to see where we can start to see the temple. So we're coming down West Yellowstone, and why don't we go right in here and see, can we see it, because the terrain is changing again. So this is what it looks like in real life. This is the terrain model. Let's turn off the terrain to make sure we're still looking at the temple, so we should see it right in this range here. When we turn back on the terrain, we don't see it. Okay, and again, there will be more things in the way of the view of the temple anyways. So let's keep going, because we do want to get to where we can see it. And let's see, where are we now? Okay, so this is where we're at. Here's the South Fork Hill going up to Valley View. Let's see if we can see it from here. This is a good spot to check out. Make sure we're still looking at the temple. Yep, should be right there in about the middle of our screen. And it's not visible. So I've already done this a few times, double checking a bunch of different places along the way, trying to see where we can start seeing it from. And here we are at the Forest Service building. Still can't see the temple. Let's keep going. Let's go down here. Let's see, we got to be about to Walmart. Yeah, we're coming up in Walmart. So let's check here. Go right up to the Walmart intersection. I think that's where this is. Sure enough, Walmart intersection. Let's see if we can see the temple. Let's make sure we're looking at the temple. I'm not sure I have the right angle. Yep, okay, so right there. Turn back on the terrain. Can't see it. Turn on the street view. Not much for trees up there or anything, but that view just basically won't change is what it's showing us. Now, let's go down to where I know we can start seeing it from, because we can't see it all the way through here. And we're going to go, let's see, I want to be right about here somewhere. Let's see, let's do street view. Okay, this is a good spot for us to start. Can we see the temple? Okay, so there's where the temple would be if we were trying to look at it. And we cannot see it. So what I do want to do is go right up about here. And let's turn on the street view so we can see where we're at. All right, so we're coming up on AutoZone. And let's turn on the 3D model. We can't see it yet, but we are going to be able to see it right as we get over here. Okay, and there it is. Now it looks pretty big up on top of that hill for sure, no doubt, from when you can finally see it. There it is. Let's turn on street view. You actually can't see it from here because AutoZone is going to be in the way. So let's go a little bit farther. Having a little bit of trouble with my navigation here, but let's go a little bit further. And there's the temple. And let's see what street view would look like. Okay, so it would be right up on top of there. You can actually see it just for a second after I click this. You can kind of see the two fade together. Just for a second, you can see what it would look like right there. So let's keep going. And of course, you're going to be able to see it across Sulphur Creek. That makes sense. Okay. And then let's keep going. Let's go ahead and go right over here. And of course, you're going to be able to see it from here. So what we learned from this is that you can see it on Yellowstone Avenue coming in once you get past AutoZone. But you're going to have to turn your head at least 90 degrees to be able to see it. You're going to have to know it's there. You're going to want to be looking for it. Crank your head 90 degrees. You'll be able to see it. Coming out of town, you'll be able to see it for sure. Along Sulphur Creek. Let's see. All along here, you'd be able to see it for sure. Oh, well, let's see. Okay, so there's a tree in the way in this view. I mean, there can always be other obstructions like trees and such that get in the way. And let's see, what about here? Oh, we've got a smudge on the camera, or that's a stitch between the two photos probably. So let's go here. And, oh, okay, so it starts to get hidden. So right here at the Sulphur Creek Road, you'll be able to see it from about here to about there. I think that's about, well, let's see. Let's see how far that is. Let's just go ahead and measure this in feet. So from about AutoZone to about Sulphur Creek, maybe 1,000 feet of the road, you'll be able to see it as you drive out of town. Coming in town, you'll be able to see it too if you're really stretching. And that 1,000 feet is generous because we could only see the very tip of it. So maybe more about 700-800 feet, you'll be able to have a clear view of it. Now that's just West Yellowstone, so it'd be good for us to maybe look around. I'm going to spin us facing south again. Look around from some other spots. So Let's just do let's do 11th Street here because that's a really busy street right over by the high school field. Okay, so this is what happens around pretty much everywhere it's visible in town. Is the temple would be visible if there was nothing else in town, which makes sense. So you're standing out in the middle of nowhere with no obstructions, you can see things from a long ways away. But the view of the temple is going to be blocked by trees and buildings a lot. And then once we get into town at all, it's not visible from pretty much anywhere. If we drop on Main Street and we look that direction, it would be visible. It would be about that big visually, but you're not going to be able to see it because there's trees and buildings all over the place. Let's see. Let's see about a couple more spots maybe. Let's go out towards Beck Lake because that would be the other entrance that maybe you could see it from. So let's just check that. People coming into town from the Beck Lake direction, can they see the temple? And we will exit Street View. And I can actually see it on my screen. I doubt you'll be able to see it in the recording. That's funny. It even disappears on the terrain view. I think that might be it right there. It's not going to be very visible at all. And that, of course, doesn't include, well, let's do that again because we're trying to keep the same methodology here. Okay, the street view, of course, now there's trees and buildings that block it even more. So let's go back to the one place that you can see it pretty well. And let's change it. And in fact, I want to go further over. I want to go right where it's nice and visible. Right here. And this is one of the views that this was in the staff report for the city. So that's probably the best view it's going to have, except for right up next to it on Skyline. Obviously, when you're next to it, that's going to be the best view. But this is going to be the view that looks over town. I've heard that a lot, looking over town. And what does that really mean? Well, it's looking over it about 700 or 800 feet of West Yellowstone Avenue. If you know it's there coming into town, you'll be able to see it. If you don't know it's there, you'll miss it. Heading out of town, you'll definitely be able to see it, absolutely. There's one more spot maybe we should look. As we're talking about how it looks from town, not necessarily from the neighbors. That's a different discussion. It's obvious that they'll be able to see it. There's no question there. But let's see what it would look like from Skyline, the top of South Fork Hill. So this is where Stampede turns into Skyline. There's the old South Fork Hill. And let's look at what this looks like. So let's go to terrain view. And there's the temple. Let's change it to the multicolor so it's easier to see. And yeah, so that's pretty visible from here if there wasn't other view obstructions in the way. So will we probably be able to see maybe a little bit of the spire sticking above the trees? Maybe. And remember, as we talk about views, looking for something is different than viewing something. If you're coming up Skyline and you're looking at the view, you're going to see all of this. You're going to be taking in all of this, not just looking for one pinpoint object. So view versus actually being able to see it if you're looking for it, is two different things. So that is kind of what I found just going around. Definitely visible. Oh, definitely visible on this part of West Yellowstone going past Sulphur Creek. Not visible coming into town. Not visible from pretty much anywhere in town. Just visible from that little area. That's going to be where it looks down and across the town.